If we have not met yet, my name is Joe. I'm our campus pastor here at Mosaic Hollywood. And we are in the middle of an awesome series that we've been doing for the last few weeks called Fresh Start. And if you didn't catch the first 2 weeks of the series, I want to encourage you, go on the podcast, go on YouTube, listen to those messages from our senior pastor. Pastor Irwin has been such a phenomenal 2 weeks. And we continue our Fresh Start series today. And it's really, for me, a reminder of the necessity of the new, right? It's really a reminder that I'm always in need of a fresh start. How about you? Yep. Amen. She's ready, right? And we're in the middle of a fresh start in our family right now, right? We have 4 kids. We have Zaya, Indigo, River, and Rocky. Rocky's our baby girl, and everything is like beautiful because she's our first girl, and we're just seeing the world through like fresh eyes. And then also, not just that we have a new baby in our household, but our kids are playing soccer for the first time. You can look at me, you can tell I'm not a soccer guy. I don't have that vibe. I didn't grow up playing soccer or football or any type of thing on the field. But our kids are all about it right now, and it's so amazing to watch just them play for the first time. And especially, I'm so excited because our oldest, Isaiah, is playing organized sports for the very first time in his life. And he was going to, and then COVID hit, and so this is his first team he's ever been on. And he's our oldest, but if you've ever met Isaiah, he is an Angelino. He's an artist, and right? He's a creative, and he's not exactly the athlete, right? He probably gets that from his dad. And so I wanted him to get in a team sport, and he's playing soccer, and he's loving it. And he's having the time of his life. And the first game, right afterwards, he goes, "Daddy, it was so hard, but it was so much fun." I was like, oh, that's such a great insight that he's gaining. And he's literally gone from 0 to 100, where he's never played soccer before. And the kids on his team have been playing for 3-4 years, right? And he already feels like he's out of his element. He's the youngest kid on the team, and the way they give the jerseys, you know who's the youngest, and then you know who's the biggest. So Zai's number 2 on the team. And there's no number lower than 2. So he is just trying to figure it out. And yesterday, he had his best game that he's had yet. I was so proud of him and excited for him. And we came to this moment, and Zai's on defense, and it was 2-2. It's the end of the game, about a minute left, and this other team has a breakaway towards the goal. And the only way to stop that player from scoring, the only one in between is my son Zai. And as a dad, I'm just nervous on the sideline, where I'm just like, don't blow it, right? This is the Smith name on the line, right? But no, deep down, I was like, hey, this is his moment. He's going to crush it, and he runs, and he goes fearless, and he goes and he steals the ball, kicks it away, and as soon as he kicks it away, this other guy comes from the team, and he's number 11. And number 11 is the biggest number you have on so this kid was about 6'9", 275. And poor Zai, who weighs maybe 45 pounds. I was like, what's going to happen? And Zai's standing in front of that goal, and this kid just loads up, and the biggest kick you could imagine, and Zai's just standing there. I was like, here you go. And then boom, nails him right in the stomach. And you hear everyone on the sidelines like, oh. And then immediately I was just like, what's going to happen? It's a big moment for him. Like, does he go down? Does he cry? But he's watching, what? And then he does that thing, if you're a guy, you know what I'm talking about, where you act like it didn't hurt. When, somebody hurt, and you do that, you bite your lip. Like, and then you swallow the pain. And I watched my 7-year-old just like man up, and his knees wobbled a little bit. And I was like, is he going to go down? And then he stood there. And then the goalie picked up the ball. I was like, that's my boy. Took it like a man. See, I know this to be true about life. See, there's going to be moments in your life and moments that will come in your life that are going to absolutely punch you in the guts. The question is not, will that moment happen? The question is, will you be left standing? See, there's a passage in Scripture that I want to go to, and I feel it gives us such great insight into those individuals, those women and men, that when life comes at them, when hardships come at them, it may buckle their knees, but they will still be standing and ready for all that God has for them. See, go with me to John chapter 8. And starting in verse 1 through 11, read this with me. It says, "But Jesus went to the Mount of Olives, and at dawn he appeared again in the temple courts, where all the people gathered around him. And he sat down to teach them. The teachers of the law and the Pharisees brought in a woman caught in adultery. They made her stand before the group and said to Jesus, 'Teacher, this woman was caught in adultery.'" This woman was caught in the act of adultery. "In the law, Moses commanded us to stone such women. Now what do you say?" They were using this question as a trap in order to have a basis for accusing him. But Jesus bent down and started to write on the ground with his finger. And when they kept on questioning him, he straightened up and said to them, "Let any of you who is without sin be the first to throw a stone at her." Again, he stooped down and wrote on the ground. And at this, those who heard began to go away one at a time, the older ones first, until Jesus was only standing there. Until only Jesus was left with the woman still standing there. Jesus straightened up and asked her, "Woman, where are they? Has no one condemned you?" "No one, sir," she said. "Then neither do I condemn you," Jesus declared. "Go and leave your life of sin." This is such a fascinating moment in the scriptures here, and especially in the life of Jesus. See, this is a moment in his life when he was going from town to town, from village to village, where he was preaching the gospel. He was healing people. He was showing us what it meant to truly be human. And you have this kind of a side note here where it seems so random that Jesus would have this encounter with this woman that just feels so off. And it says that the teachers of the law, it says that those who were the religious elite, they brought this woman who was caught in adultery, and they brought her to Jesus to trap him. Because the law of Moses said that you have to stone such a woman, that it would cost her her life. And they also wanted to trap Jesus because if he would do something on the Sabbath, which is what you should not do on that day. And they were trying to trap him. They're trying to manipulate him. And they find this moment where they try to put this woman in front of Jesus so that he could see her at her worst. But the beautiful thing I love about God is that he never sees us through the lens of our worst. He always calls out our best. See, these men, they tried to humiliate this woman. They tried to parade her in front of the group, and they tried to trick and manipulate Jesus. And it's as if he didn't hear a thing that they said because he was having a completely different conversation. And this is one of my favorite things about God, is that when we want to talk to him about one thing, he talks to us about the very thing that our soul needs to hear. He shifts the conversation. And I love this imagery where these religious leaders try to use her worst moment against her. And Jesus says, I'm going to use that very same thing to actually call her to freedom. You see, there's going to be moments in your life when it's going to feel so unbearable. It's going to feel like the weight of the world is on your shoulders. You're going to feel like, I can't believe I did that thing. I can't believe they found out about that thing. And you're going to want to hide it. What I'm telling you is God's saying, don't hide it. Bring it to me, because when you bring it to me, it's done. It's done. See, I am so thankful that God does not engage with me the way that I engage with others sometimes. How about you? See, I'm so thankful that there is an unlimited amount of grace and kindness and mercy that God gives me. How about you? And there's something profound about this visual of them trying to humiliate her, of them trying to catch her in her worst moment. And I just love in verse 9, and I feel like this is for some of us in this room. It says that those who heard began to go away one at a time, the older ones first, until only Jesus was left, with the woman still standing there. See, no matter what comes your way, no matter what punches life throws at you, no matter how many times people try to cut you at your knees, what I want you to tell you is you can always still be standing. See, one of my favorite fights of all time is Muhammad Ali versus George Foreman. It's the Rumble in the Jungle. Just the dopest name ever. And it's this moment where Muhammad Ali, who was past his prime, who used to be the best fighter, but now is done, and now George Foreman is the best fighter. And they said George Foreman was unbeatable. Nobody can destroy this man. And Muhammad Ali agrees to fight him, and he comes up with a strategy called rope-a-dope. Again, this man was like, he had hashtags before there was hashtags. And the rope-a-dope was that he would have this insane strategy where he would lean against the ropes and let George Foreman, who was the baddest man on the planet, beat the mess out of him. And round after round after round, George Foreman would just unload, and Muhammad Ali stayed on the ropes. And every time he would hit him, and the crowd would gasp because they're like, he's not going to be able to withstand this. And Muhammad Ali would whisper in George's ear, "Is that all you got, George?" And then George would get more infuriated, and he'd punch even harder. And then Muhammad would take it. Oh, you could see the pain. If you watch this fight, it's not that the fight wasn't painful, it's that his will was stronger. And every punch that came, he said, "Is that all you got, George?" Until finally the 11th round. He said, "Is that all you got, George?" And George was like, "Yeah, that's all I got." And he took 11 rounds of pummeling, of beating to a pulp, but he was still standing. See, what allowed Muhammad Ali to win that fight is he was not physically stronger than George. He could never outlast him with his punches, but he could outlast him with his perseverance. See, some of you need the perseverance that comes only from God, where you have this strength and resolve that says, life, keep punching, I'm not going nowhere. I'm telling you, you don't need God to give you anything else, because the beautiful thing about resolve, it's already in you. He put it inside you when he made you. He put it inside you. He said there's going to be an opportunity for that to be unleashed. And my goodness, we are so soft. Somebody hurts us, and we say they abused us with their words. It's called, relationships. Can you believe what she said to me? Are you married? You know what things my wife says to me? Oh my goodness, you offended me, I'm out, right? That's relationships. You know how many times I've been called out? You know how many times backstage, 30 seconds before I'm coming out here, I've had a conversation with Pastor Irwin, and he just speaks life into me, also known as he just corrects me. It's I don't know what in the world you just said, but don't say that ever again. It's yes, I'm going to go out there in 30 seconds. Thank you, sir. I can't tell you how many people I have in my life that they call me out. Not like these religious leaders, though, in public to condemn me. They call me out because they know there's more in me. And I want those people in my life. See, the reason we need God's voice is not simply to confirm all the things that we want to be true about us. And that's how we think God speaks. We think God only speaks in confirmation. But if God only speaks in confirming what you already want to do, then why do you even need God? See, the reason I need God in my life, I need his voice in my life, is when I'm afraid to do the very thing that I need to do. And it's his voice that pulls me to more. It's his voice that calls me out and it calls me up. You see, there's something about the person of Jesus that whenever we invite him into those spaces in our life, when we just feel like I can't take one more step, I feel like the pain is overwhelming, I feel like the weight of worry and anxiety and depression is as if it's an anvil on my back. See, I think the reason God allows those things into our lives is because he's not interested in making our life easier. He's interested in making our life more meaningful. And if you'll have the resolve to just plant, to take that punch, to take that hardship, to be willing to find yourself in the audience of those that want to condemn you, what you'll realize is, here's the thing about criticism and condemnation. It always leaves. See, it always exits the story because condemnation always has an expiration date. But freedom, but mercy, but grace. See, there ain't no expiration date on grace. See, there ain't no expiration date on forgiveness. See, there ain't no expiration date on the joy that is found when you trust Jesus with everything. Because he doesn't promise he's going to eliminate the obstacles, but he promises he'll give you the strength to overcome. And that's who he is. And there's this insane moment in the life of this woman and in the life of Jesus that they didn't realize that by trying to trap her and condemn her, they were going to actually bring her to the safest place her soul could ever be. And maybe that's you. Maybe there's been a choice that you made. Maybe there's been a moment in your life when other people tried to mark you for that moment and it was in this alignment of your spirit where you realize that there is no moment that is too big that God cannot bring you out of. That there is no choice that could keep you from the power and the magnetism of his love. And there's this thing inside of all of us, we have to have the courage to when everybody else runs away, I'm still standing. Because there's some things that you need to know about the character of God. And that's what I love about God. See, because whenever God will allow something to come to light, right? Whether it's something going on in your life or people find out about, or whenever God allows something to come into the light, what I need you to hear me is that he allows that not so that he can reveal the sin, but it's so that he can remove the shame. See, anything that's been a dark moment in your life and you just wanted to run from, what I need you to see is God did not illuminate it so that everyone around you could see your sin. It's so that you could see the power of that shame and then receive the power of his grace. And you receive it all. And if you don't believe me, listen to this. In Colossians chapter 2, it says, when you were stuck in your old sin, dead life. Anybody ever been there before? It's called Tuesday. When you were stuck in your old sin, dead life, you were incapable of responding to God. God brought you alive, right along with Christ. Think of it. All sins forgiven. The slate, what? Say it louder. The slate, what? Wiped clean. See, some of you think that God is holding that thing that you did in a folder in his office, and you need to realize that thing's an Etch-a-Sketch. He erased that. He wiped it clean. And that old arrest warrant canceled and nailed to Christ's cross. See, here's the thing, right? He removed it, right? That guilt and that shame, you no longer need to wear it. You no longer need to carry it. And grace and forgiveness is free. But there's nothing in life that's truly free, right? You know this, right? There's nothing in life, somebody paid for it, right? You had free parking today. You're welcome. and you're welcome. We paid for it. And if you didn't have free parking, show up late or show up on time next week. It means you showed up late today and you couldn't get free parking. But somebody paid for it, right? Anytime there's a free advertisement, buy one, get one free. That ain't free. They already allocated that cost. Somebody paid for it. See, the scriptures say the wages of sin is death, but the gift of God is eternal life. See, there was a cost for you and I's mess. There was a cost for the mistakes that we would make. There is a cost for the sin that we would step into. The reality is that we don't have to pay for it. We don't have to pay for it. Jesus already did. See, he paid that price because he said that you were worth it. And he paid that price because he knew there would be a day, maybe that day is today, when you felt like you weren't worth it. Or maybe there was a day like today or a day recently when maybe somebody brought something from your past back up and you thought you were over it, and you're like, am I ever going to outrun my past? See, you know one way you don't have to worry about outrunning your past? Create a new future. See, your past can never catch up to you when you're creating a new future. It ain't fast enough. I don't care if it's a Tesla. I don't care if it's a Porsche. I don't care if it's a Lambo. Your past is not faster than the movement of God in your life. But what is it about us that we love to hold people's past over them? Why are we in an age of we got to cancel everything and everyone? We want to cancel, we want to hold over everyone's worst moment over their head. Twitter went from a social media app to just bulldozer. I'm going to dig up your dirt. Let me show it. We always want to cancel everybody. You want to cancel, you want to cancel. The only thing Jesus worried about canceling was canceling the power of your sin. See, that's it. We want, and like now the word is accountability. We want everybody to be held accountable, and I'm with that. I agree. But accountability without proximity, that's just criticism. Like, we want you to be held accountable all over there in London. You don't even know their name. And then we rush to judgment, right? Why? We rush to judgment, and God doesn't even give judgment. He said, I'm not going to judge you. I'm not going to condemn you. I'm only going to set you free. So we need to reshape the narrative of what it means to truly be human and stop demonizing people at their worst, but actually be close enough to people that you pull out the best in them, even in their worst moments. That's who Jesus is. Let me go back to this moment right after they bring this woman in front of Jesus. I love what he does. It says, but Jesus bent down and started to write on the ground with his finger. When they kept on questioning him, he straightened up and said to them, let any of you who is without sin be the first to throw a stone at her. Again, he stooped down and wrote on the ground. Man, you ever like read a passage in the scripture and you're like, dang, I wish I was there so that I could dang, you missed that one very important thing, right? You read it and you're like, how'd you forget to put that in there? This is one of those moments for me. Like, you have this epic moment. These Pontius, arrogant religious leaders try to bring this woman in front of Jesus to condemn her. And instead of condemning, Jesus doesn't even talk to them. He says he just gets on the ground. This finger, he stoops down, he starts writing on the ground. See, if I was there, I'd be like, what did he write? This is how you know the writer, the people documenting what happened, they did not grow up in Hollywood. They'd never heard of TMZ. Do you know how much money that writing in the ground will be worth, Jesus? I want to know what he wrote. There's all kinds of theories about what he could have wrote. And, people think he could have wrote the names of women that they had had affairs with, right? Ooh, and like, oh, so Jesus is going there. My bad, Jesus. That group chat, like, Joe has left the conversation. Yeah? Yep. Like, I could see that. I could see Jesus just, even if it's not specific names, just writing things that he knew about them that there's no way he should have known. But here's actually why I love this moment. I love that we actually don't know. Because that actually aligns way more to the character and person of God. That even those that came in condemnation, Jesus said, ain't nobody ever going to know what's in this dirt because it's between me and you. And that even when they tried to humiliate this woman, he said, see, I go a different route. And I'm not even going to deal with it, but I'll write something. And I remember Jesus looked at him, like, gave him probably a little wink, like, yeah, you know. And then they left, see? Because whenever you come in condemnation, you always have to leave the story. Yeah. See, Jesus is the one filled with grace and endless mercy, and he just is standing there with this woman. She's probably naked because they just grabbed her out, and I imagine just tears rushing down her face, so embarrassed, so humiliated. Also, knowing that this is probably her last day on earth, because they would have had the right to murder her based on the law. But Jesus says, see, this is why I came. Because you're so focused on the law, you have lost your humanity. Right. See, the movement of Jesus is powerful, and it's active, and it's life-giving. Whenever we take on his posture, not a religious posture. See, his posture is one of mercy and joy and kindness. And the reason his posture is rooted in this place is because he knows that this is not the end of her story. Because it says at this, those who heard began to go away one at a time, the older ones first, until only Jesus was left with the woman still standing there. And Jesus straightened up and asked her, woman, where are they? Has no one condemned you? No one, sir. Then neither do I condemn you, Jesus declared. And then here it is, go now and leave your life of sin. See, whenever Jesus enters into our story, whenever he comes alongside of us, or better yet, when we allow him to come alongside of us, he may not condemn us, and he may not remind us of our worst, but what he will do is call us to a greater future. And he looks at this woman, and he never looks at her and says, like, don't make these mistakes again, or don't, get caught up in this again. He simply says, leave this life of sin. He calls her to something greater. See, every time you invite the person of Jesus in, he will always call you to something greater than yourself. And this woman, all of a sudden, is brought into a new future. See, maybe you're here and you just feel like there's no hope. Maybe you're here and you feel like you're just too far gone. Maybe you're here and you feel the weight of your past like a straitjacket just sucking the life out of you. But what I want you to hear is that when you trust Jesus with everything, he reminds you that there's always a greater future for you. See, I'm here because there was a day when I was 22 years old, when I felt the weight of life just as if the walls were closing in, and I just felt every mistake that I made just compounded the next, and I just made horrific choice after horrific choice. And every choice that I made, I felt like I was drifting further and further and further away from God, and I didn't know how to get back. And I remember I had a thought, God, if you're out there, will you still have me? And I didn't know how to get back, and I just got on my knees. And I heard this pastor one time years ago, and I wasn't even close to Jesus. I don't even know who it was or why he said this, but I heard him say, if you're ever desperate, you want to hear the voice of God, just grab a Bible, close your eyes, open it up, and point in the Bible, and God will speak to you. And I was so desperate. I was on my knees, and I closed my eyes, and I grabbed the Bible that was in my closet, and I just opened it, pointed my finger. And I went to this verse that said, so-and-so was the brother of so-and-so, was the brother of so-and-so. It's like, really? A genealogy? Like, I was so frustrated, and I was ready. I was like, see, I knew it was pointless. I'm at my worst. I'm at my lowest. And God, why aren't you there? Why aren't you speaking? And I closed it. And it's like, when I closed it, I felt like my soul felt the tension. And I feel like God saying, is that how bad you want it? Is that how desperate you are? That you would give up in 10 seconds because I didn't show up the way that you wanted me to? And he said, how hungry are you? And I just opened it back up and I flipped pages and I pointed to another verse and it meant nothing. But then I flipped the other direction and I pointed to another voice and it meant nothing. And I kept going back and forth and back and forth. And I was just so hungry because I knew something was so empty. And finally, I got to Psalm 34. And the first 7 verses, it was as if it was a pebble on a snowy bank that every time it just kept rolling, it kept getting bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. And the verses kept coming to life. And then I got to Psalm 34:8 that says, taste and see that the Lord is good. Dang, getting goosebumps again. See, I forgot how good God was. I forgot. I forgot how beautiful the person of Jesus is when you fully invite him in. See, I just felt this overwhelming sense of the goodness of God. And then I just started tasting how good he was. And every day I just started making new choices and tasting how good he was. And then when I blew it and made a dumb choice, I still kept tasting how good he was. And this time it was grace. And the next time it was kindness. See, and maybe you're here and maybe you've forgotten how good God is. That's a separate note. We'll get there, but maybe you're here. I know you're here. And you've yet to taste how good he is. Man, there is a 5-star James Beard Michelin meal waiting for you by the chef artist that is Jesus. And it'll be a meal unlike any meal you have ever tasted. But you gotta first say yes. You gotta first make that huge step to open up your soul and your life to Jesus. And if that's you here today, and you're ready to just receive everything that God has for you, then I'm telling you, the life that you long for is simply one choice away. I want all of us to bow our heads and close our eyes. If that's you here right now, and you just feel like in your spirit there's this heaviness, there's this weight that no matter how hard you try, no matter how many different things you do, you just can't take this burden off of your spirit. If you're here and you've yet to trust your life to Jesus, but maybe finally for the first time ever, or for the first time in a long time, you just sense his voice speaking life into you right now. And he's reminding you that there's no choice that you could make that is greater than the choice he made when he went to the cross on your behalf. And right now, if you're here and you're ready to trust your life to Jesus, I just want you to take just a deep breath in right now. I want you to, in that breath, to receive his life. And when you exhale, I want you to Exhale your life. Inhale his life. Exhale your life. Inhale hope. Exhale despair. Inhale peace. Exhale anxiety. Inhale joy. Exhale anger. Inhale forgiveness. Exhale bitterness. Jesus, give you my life. If that was you, and you stepped over the line of faith today, you breathed in life from him. You said, Jesus, I'm all yours. And I want you to raise your hand right now so I could pray over you. Just raise your hand. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. Come on, keep your hand up. I want to see you. Because more importantly, I want you to know that God sees you in this moment. Beautiful. Father, I pray for every hand held high in this room. Jesus, I just pray that you would overwhelm them with your love right now. I pray that they would feel your presence on the back of their neck and that they would know that the moment they walk out of this place, there is something different about them because the difference is they found life in you. And I pray that everywhere that they walk this week, that people would look and see a difference in them and they could tell the story of your hope and your grace and your love. Jesus, we thank you so much. We're all yours. We pray, God, that you would take us into a future that we never could without you. We love you and ask all this in your name. And together we said, amen. Hey, can we thank God right now for everyone who made a choice? Beautiful.